So this is another YouTube video. This is the last thing we're going to cover. This is a 30-minute video. This is the United States versus China. Who would win? Army and military comparison in 2025. This was done 5 months ago by the Infographics show on YouTube. I didn't initially want to watch one of his shows, but that's just because he's pretty clearly super anti-Trump. So he gives foreign nations a lot of leniency in a way that I wouldn't. So it does give me a little bit of a reason to watch him, because he's going to assume that the nation that isn't America will do better than I think it will. So if I watch this, then it will give me kind of a pro-other nation thing. Let's see if somebody who is not necessarily a fan of the United States, or at least necessarily a fan of the Trump administration, let's see what he has to say about the army and military comparison between the United States and China. Now, like we've already covered, China has more in terms of raw numbers, at least for the Navy, and I'm fairly certain that their ground military is a little bit larger than ours as well. But we have more experience and expertise in certain fields. Also, our training is among the best in the world for our ground troops. And for at least our ships, the quality is much better than what China has going on right now. They're rolling them off the assembly line, and we're carving them out of wood. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's a vast difference in the quality of these vessels. So they can have more, that's fine. America is still going to end up winning that.
The U.S. Armed Forces are widely regarded as,
to an extent, obviously,
the pinnacle of modern military power, boasting cutting-edge technology, advanced strategies, and nearly limitless funding. But while the U.S. may be the most powerful, it is not the largest. That title belongs to China's People's Liberation Army, or PLA, the biggest military force in the world, far outpacing any other national army in sheer numbers. However, in one key area the U.S. and China started evenly matched: naval power. Both nations currently operate over 350 combat-ready warships, making them global maritime giants. But fleet size alone doesn't tell the full story. So is the U.S. military really superior to China's? Or is Beijing on track to outpace Washington in both military dominance and geopolitical influence? Keep watching to find out what truly sets these two superpowers apart in today's episode of the Infographics Show, USA versus China Military Power 2025 edition. The People's Liberation Army is undisputedly the world's largest military force in terms of active personnel. According to latest reports, the Chinese military boasts...
Yeah, see, this is what I was saying. They have more, like, in terms of sheer numbers than the U.S. does, because they have just more people.
It's just over 2 million active troops, while the U.S. military has around 1.3 million. The massive gap in manpower is largely due to population size. China's total population stands at over 1.4 billion. Whereas the U.S. has approximately 340 million residents based on the latest census data and government estimates. If we compare active troop number to total population size, the U.S. appears more militarized overall. Despite having fewer total soldiers, the U.S. maintains a global military presence capable of launching operations halfway across the world within days. This was most recently demonstrated by U.S. military actions against Iran-backed militias near Israel. In multiple operations, the U.S. utilized long-range aircraft, precision strikes, and its vast network of overseas bases to deliver devastating blows to insurgent forces. Because of its commitment to maintaining global influence, the U.S. is often referred to as the world police. Unlike other nations that rapidly expand
America, fuck yeah,
and or shrink their forces,
coming again to save the mother.
The U.S. military's overall manpower has remained relatively stable for the past 2 decades, reflecting its long-term strategy of power projection rather than raw numbers. Any fluctuations in troop levels have been largely dictated by military engagements, with peaks occurring during the height of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. In recent years, as the focus has shifted toward great power competition, the emphasis has been on modernization, force readiness, and the integration of emerging technologies, rather than sheer manpower.
I don't agree with the infographics guy, but I do like the videos that he makes. They're super good quality. Like, definitely subscribe to this guy if you're not already.
Our expansion. This is helped by the various advancements in military equipment, some of which we'll broach later, which allow the military to operate with fewer people overall. As such, the U.S. focuses not on quantity but on quality, with unparalleled access to state-of-the-art training, equipment, and strategies that the military uses to ensure that soldiers are at the top of their game. By contrast, China follows a quantity-first approach, relying on its larger active force and vast population pool to sustain its military. With over 2 million active troops, the PLA prioritizes sheer numbers as a key element of its defense strategy. However, if we examine the demographics of China's military, we see significant changes over the past 20 years.
Their general rule is to throw wave after wave of disposable minion at a problem until it either goes away or the bodies stack up so high that it forms another great wall. Right on, right on.
At the turn of the century...
I mean, with 1.4 billion people, maybe you can afford to do that.
The PLA was estimated to have around 4 million active personnel. This implies that China has gradually reduced its reliance on sheer manpower. Typically, this was done by investing heavily in more modern equipment, cyber warfare, artificial intelligence, and precision strike capabilities. This restructuring aligns with Beijing's broader military reforms, which are aimed at transitioning from a traditionally land-based force to one capable of also operating at sea or in the air. While China's troop numbers have slightly decreased, the overall combat readiness and effectiveness of the PLA have significantly improved. The focus has shifted towards special operations, joint warfare, and mechanized forces, bringing China's military capabilities closer to modern Western standards. These advancements are further reinforced by increased military cooperation with Russia, one of China's closest strategic allies. Through joint exercises, the PLA has gained experience working alongside.
Russia is China's Mexico, right? Like, so in the same way that America and Mexico are super closely related and work together, like on a lot of things, Russia and China are the same way. And to be fair, they're geographic neighbors, so it makes sense that they would work together.
At one of the world's most battle-hardened and technologically advanced armies, sharpening its combat readiness for future conflicts.
It is funny that both of them have the same kind of military doctrine, where they throw wave after wave of disposable people at a problem until it goes away or the bodies stack up so high that it forms a wall. Like, they have the same kind of doctrine, but again, with that many people, I suppose they can get away with it.
What does this mean for our power rankings? Well, the U.S.
Call us crazy, but in America, we don't think that any of our civilians are expendable. It's weird.
Holds a qualitative edge, but China could eke out a prolonged conflict through sheer numbers. Economically, though, China is nowhere near being able to match the sheer output and investments the U.S. has made over the past.
That is something he just said that I disagree with. He said that he thinks China could end up winning a prolonged conflict just because it has sheer numbers. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that America's quality will far outweigh the quantity that China is able to bring.
Last decade, or at least not yet. This is reflected in the country's respective military budgets. For 2025, the military budget for the U.S. Army is estimated to be around $849 billion. This is a slight increase from the previous years, where the budget was hovering in the low $800 billion. However, the U.S. is actually spending less of its total GDP on military than in the previous few years. This showcases that the economic growth of the country doesn't completely correlate to an increase in the military budget. Nevertheless, the fact remains that the U.S. is by far the biggest spender on its military and national defense programs,
It is.
outspending the next few countries combined. Meanwhile, China's official military budget for 2025 stands at $266 billion. Though some analysts argue the real figure could be closer to $700 billion. Despite its growing military power, China spends a smaller percentage of its GDP on defense, only 1.7% compared to the 3.4% that the U.S. has consistently allocated over the past few years.
And if it's in terms of a raw percentage number, then with America's GDP rising with the new tariff revenue this year, so too will the defense spending.
However, China's military budget has been steadily rising, reflecting both economic growth and a commitment to modernization.
Yeah, but until now, their economy has been steadily rising, but their workforce is, the average age of the Chinese worker is like 50 years old or some shit, so... their workforce is dwindling slowly due to their previous one-child policy, and their economic power is dwindling slowly due to the American tariffs. So we'll see. I think their defense spending is going to end up leveling out of necessity.
In just 12 years, the budget has practically doubled, and since 2000, it has grown more than tenfold. This rapid expansion highlights two key trends: China's explosive economic development and the PLA's strategic shift toward modernization. Instead of relying solely on sheer numbers, the military is focusing on streamlining operations, enhancing technology, and deploying more advanced weaponry. Additionally, China stands alone as perhaps the only nation capable of mass-producing weapons at an unprecedented scale, thanks to its enormous industrial and manufacturing capacity. By contrast, the
Are you retarded?
U.S. weapons industry is more advanced, built on decades-old contracts with trusted manufacturers that provide state-of-the-art
Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, stuff like that.
weaponry. However, this cutting-edge technology comes at a price: limited production capacity and skyrocketing costs for high-end military equipment. China, on the other hand, leverages its vast industrial base and a long history of reverse engineering Western military technology. While its weapons may not always match the originals in sophistication, they are often close enough, with the added advantage of being produced in a far greater quantity than the West
See, they bastardize American technology, like I said earlier.
could ever achieve. This results in a tie in terms of economic power. While the U.S.
Not true at all, which we've seen clearly with this video was put out 5 months ago. Which we've seen clearly with the American tariffs, because the American consumer base is so highly sought after by these other countries, because the American consumer base is one of the only ones that actually have the disposable income to just buy random shit off of Temu, right? So I don't think that their economies are... They're certainly similar, but I wouldn't consider them a tie by any means, especially not anymore.
is a superpower, China is aiming to become its main competitor or even outpace it in terms of gross economic product. But let's circle back to the start of the episode, where we mentioned comparable numbers of warships and discussed naval power. The U.S. Navy and the People's Liberation Army Navy, or PLAN, are two of the most formidable maritime forces in the world.
Yeah.
Yet they have vastly different structures. Chief amongst the differences is the size and scale of their fleets. Both countries are estimated to possess around 350 warships, but the roles of those ships are vastly different. One major example of how raw numbers can be misleading is in aircraft carriers. While China's total naval fleet size may rival that of the U.S., the type and quality of those ships tell a different story. The U.S. operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, the backbone of its global power projection.
We're able to... our Air Force is really what does it for us, and the aircraft carriers are what are able to make that happen.
In contrast, China only has 2 active carriers, with a third
one in trial, which this is a 5-month-old video. We already covered that third one is out now, but they have 3. That's it.
Currently undergoing sea trials. Furthermore, Chinese aircraft carriers are widely considered inferior to their American counterparts. By all accounts, even the newest design of the Chinese aircraft carrier, the Fujian, or the Type 003, still relies on mainly fossil fuels for traditional operation.
Which is probably also why China built like 90 fucking coal manufacturing, like coal power plants.
That makes the carrier unsuitable for long-term patrols and extended times away from port, as it needs to refuel and restock much more frequently. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the U.S. Navy's most advanced aircraft carrier, is a prime example of why American carriers remain unmatched. It can deploy a far superior air fleet, including the F-35C stealth fighter, the EA-18G Growler for electronic warfare, and the E-2D Hawkeye for airborne early warning, giving it a significant advantage in detection, coordination, and strike capabilities. The U.S. carriers also possess more robust launching systems, automation, and even more potent self-defense weapons. So what does China actually have going for it to make this into somewhat of a tie? In short, China's naval expansion comes down to its massive manufacturing potential. While its current fleet is estimated at around 350 warships, that number is expected to surpass 400 by 2025 and reach approximately 420 within the next 4 years. However, even this is somewhat misleading, as a large number of those ships are corvettes, the smallest possible class of warships, and designed primarily for coastal warfare.
Yeah, like I said, first of all, China is readying their navy to attack Taiwan. That's what it is. They're not trying to necessarily get into an open seas war with the United States Navy. So they're gonna build a shit ton of smaller ships, but they're rolling them off on like an assembly line style. So they're mass manufactured, and they're not necessarily the best of quality.
The U.S. Navy actually phased out its corvettes all the way back after World War II.
We don't need that shit
anymore. By contrast, the U.S. operates 74 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and 2 Zumwalt-class destroyers, compared to the 45 or so destroyers scattered across various classes that China uses. As such, it's difficult to ascertain exactly how China aims to compete with the U.S. Navy in the open seas, but it might not have to. So far,
but you are still sitting here claiming that they can. Why?
The main contention points for the two sides have been the Chinese claims in the South China and East China Sea, including Taiwan.
Yeah.
China's military influence doesn't extend far outside of its borders and the exclusive economic zone, meaning that it'll need more patrol and coastal-bound vessels than open ocean ones like heavy destroyers.
Yep.
In a realistic scenario, China doesn't have the vessels to operate a fleet that can mount attacks away from their mainland. This gives the U.S. a significant edge when it comes to sheer naval power. Naval fleets aren't the only ones that are going to be vital in a theoretical U.S.-China conflict. Air power is arguably more important than ever, and it's here that the U.S. can really show off. First, the U.S. has one of the largest...
The U.S. has the first and second largest air forces on the planet.
Fleets of military aircraft in the world, with over 13,000 total aircraft at the U.S. military's disposal. By comparison, China has roughly 3,100 aircraft split between the Air Force and...
And this isn't like China, where we just have a bunch of super small planes. Like, no.
the Navy. And the differences in scale only start there. The U.S. also has much more advanced aircraft. While the qualitative advantage is in the American corner in pretty much every regard, it's perhaps most notable in fighter and bomber aircraft that the two countries have to offer. The U.S.
The B-2 stealth bomber. We've seen what that thing can do.
Air Force fields the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II, both fifth-generation aircraft built for stealth, superior maneuverability, advanced avionics, and multi-role capabilities. These jets give the U.S. a significant edge in air superiority, with battle-proven technology and decades of refinement. China, on the other hand, introduced its own fifth-generation fighter, the Chengdu J-20 Mighty Dragon, in 2017.
Right.
Since then, it's undergone several upgrades, improving its avionics, engines, and stealth features.
Okay, all right.
There are three main differences to note between the U.S. and Chinese air.
So by now they've got like 200 of those, I think, right now, or maybe a little bit less. But from the statistics that we covered earlier, they've got I think a couple of hundred of the fifth generation fighters. I know for sure now that America and China are both working on a sixth generation fighter jet. I don't know if either of them have actually come out with one yet. If they have, it's probably pretty classified, but yeah, no. So this is the fifth generation. Okay.
Aircraft here. To begin, the J-20 doesn't have the specifications to go toe-to-toe with fifth generation aircraft. Frequent engine problems, mediocre armament, and a stealth-based design on outdated...
This is what happens when you mass produce shit and all you're trying to do is copy what America's been doing. While America's over here innovating and actually understanding how to work shit, you're just copy and pasting, and it oftentimes comes out with defects because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But you think if you make more of them, then you'll win, which is not necessarily the case. But for whatever reason, the Infographics guy's giving you a lot of liberty in this regard, and I won't.
Technology all suggest that the Chengdu J-20 Mighty Dragon is a reverse-engineered attempt at replicating Western fifth-generation fighters using whatever parts were available at the time. Furthermore, the J-20 has never actually been combat tested, so all of its capabilities came from benchmarking and dry testing. It could mean that the supposed competitor to the F-22 is nowhere near as capable as it might seem.
Meanwhile, the F-22 has been battlefield tested several times and will absolutely dog walk other planes in a dogfight, man. Oh boy. I'm also fairly certain that the F-22 has like advanced like correction, like AI correction shit, because it's not supposed to go as fast as it does. And the engines push it fast enough that it won't like stay stable in the air, so it has to constantly make small corrections to be able to fly straight.
Daniel Rice, a China military and political strategy expert at Krulak Center for Innovation and Future Warfare, argues that the Chengdu J-20 should be classified as a 4.5 generation fighter at best. What does go in China's favor, however, is its prodigious production rate. The U.S. military currently operates 186 F-22 Raptors. And
like, he's a fifth-generation fighter, but he's a pussy bitch, so we're not going to give him that fifth star.
At least 630 F-35s, with plans to acquire over 1,800 F-35s in the coming years, making it the largest fifth-generation fighter fleet in the world.
Yeah, we'll probably end up replacing all of our F-22s with F-35s, if we're just being honest. Like, that's kind of the trend of what America does.
In contrast, the J-20 is still relatively new, with over 300 produced by mid-2024. However, China is ramping up production, manufacturing around 100...
Which they won't be able to do long, given that their economy is going to take a hit.
100 J-20s per year, with no official limit on how long production will continue. Some estimates suggest that by 2035, the Chinese Air Force could field over 1,000 J-20s, potentially challenging the
Those estimates are wrong.
numerical advantage of U.S. fighters.
Well, it depends on who's president after Trump, but yeah, those estimates are probably not necessarily accurate.
China is also accelerating its production of the J-16 and J-10, as well as their C variants for use on carriers. The J-16 is a multi-role fighter and has more than 100 airframes produced annually, while the J-10's production is around less than 40 airframes per year. These are analogous to third or fourth generation aircraft in the U.S. With all this talk about aircraft, it's important to note that manned vehicles might not be the gold standard for long. Unmanned drones have become increasingly complex and capable of performing devastating attacks. China is by far the biggest producer of drones, particularly commercial ones, and is home to some of the most well-known companies that develop drone technology. It's highly likely that China can quickly ramp up the production of drones, should they be considered for widespread military use. Overall, the advantage in the air currently belongs to the US, but that might not be the case for long if China finally develops a worthy contender for fifth generation.
Dude, you gave zero evidence of how China could even step up to America in this, and now you're going to try and make the case that America dominates the skies, but maybe not for long? Like, what?
Aircraft and starts production en masse. Of course, this doesn't take into account an aircraft that the US has, which is seemingly unmatched by any military in the world, including China's. Stealth
B-2?
bombers.
Yeah.
The B-21 Raider is a relatively new addition to the U.S. Air Force, and it is still in testing. However, it would potentially allow the U.S. to mount an aerial bombardment of heavily reinforced bunkers.
Not potentially. We've done it. We flew them from Missouri to Iran, leveled a bunch of nuclear weapons facilities, and then left. They flew 13 miles around the globe, and nobody knew. Nobody knew. China did not know that these bombers were in the air for 13 hours. They were refueled 7 times mid-flight. Come on, man. America.
Pretty much anywhere in the world. By combining the stealth bombers with piercing ordnance, the U.S. could attack silos and weapon storages, removing another superpower's nuclear arsenal without resorting to using its own nuclear weapons. As of February 2025, the United States maintains a fleet of 19 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, following the decision to not repair one aircraft after a mishap in December 2022. The B-2, operational since 1997, is a multi-role bomber capable of delivering both conventional and nuclear munitions, with its stealth design allowing it to penetrate most enemy defenses. The B-21 is expected to gradually replace the B-2.
Yeah, the B-2, I believe, is the one that we sent to Iran. This B-21, I guess, is supposed to replace it, which means that, like, our old shit is still too advanced for China. Dude, what argument are you going to make that China can even step up to us?
Fleet, with initial operational capability anticipated in the late...
Other than that, they have a lot of people, which, to be fair, when guns and bombs are a thing in warfare, the number of people don't matter as much.
2020s. While the Air Force's official plan has been to acquire at least 100 B-21s, ongoing force structure reviews suggest that this number could change, potentially increasing to over 200 aircraft to meet evolving strategic requirements. China, conversely, is actively developing the H-20, a strategic stealth bomber intended to enhance the People's Liberation Army Air Force's long-range strike capabilities. Publicly revealed in 2016, the H-20 is projected to have a range of just under 8,100 miles and a payload of over 10 tons, enabling it to carry both conventional and nuclear weapons. This development signifies a strategic shift, allowing China to project power beyond the second island chain, potentially reaching U.S. territories such as Guam and Hawaii. Despite these advancements, U.S. intelligence reports suggest that the H-20 is unlikely to enter operational service before the 2030s. In addition to the H-20, China is reportedly developing the JH-XX, a tactical stealth bomber intended for regional missions. This aircraft is expected to complement the H-20 by providing versatile strike options within closer proximity to China's borders. Recent reports indicate that a prototype, tentatively designated as the J-36, conducted its maiden flight in December 2024, featuring a tailless flying wing design. However, detailed information about its capabilities and intended operational timeline remains limited. These developments underscore a significant evolution in both nations' strategic bomber capacities. The United States is focusing on modernizing its fleet with the B-21 Raider to maintain its global strike capabilities. Meanwhile, China is advancing its stealth bomber programs to enhance its regional and potentially global power projection in the coming decades. In general, the U.S. holds the lead, as the H-20 is still far in the future, leaving China with practically no stealth bomber options to speak of. This means that the U.S. would have a monopoly on long-range bombardments, given the current state of detection capabilities heavily.
Again, our almost 30-year-old aircraft flew 13 miles around the globe to bomb Iran, and no one knew. Let that sink in. That's our 30-year-old shit.
Favoring the more advanced U.S. designs. And speaking of performing long-range attacks, missile developments are the next comparison. In 2024 and early 2025, both China and the U.S. have made significant advancements in missile technology, reflecting their strategic priorities and military modernization efforts. At the China Air Show in 2024, China revealed—
Let's be honest, America made significant advancements and China stole the ideas.
The GDF-600 hypersonic missile, capable of reaching speeds up to Mach 7. This missile is designed for versatility, carrying various submunitions such as smaller missiles and drones. This enables it to perform multiple roles, including kinetic strikes, reconnaissance, and electronic warfare. Meanwhile, China also has been rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal. As of mid-2024, the country's operational nuclear warhead count surpassed 600, with projections indicating it could exceed 1,000 by 2030. This expansion involves the development of new missile silos, submarines, and bombers, further enhancing China's strategic deterrence. Of course, this is nothing when compared to the American nuclear arsenal. The current stockpile of the U.S. nuclear arsenal includes over 1,700 deployed—
Like, dude, we already talked about this. At some point, it doesn't even matter. Like, if you have— let's say you have 100. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like, how many do you need to completely wipe out the entire planet? Anything you have more than that is just a dick measuring contest. Like, that's all that it is.
nuclear weapons, and another 1,900 in reserve. This is the world's second largest nuclear arsenal, only narrowly beaten out by Russia. The United States has also been making strides in missile technology, maintaining its focus on strategic deterrence and next-generation weaponry. In February of 2025, the U.S. military successfully test-launched an unarmed Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile from Vandenberg Space Force Base. This test aimed to validate the reliability and effectiveness of the U.S. nuclear deterrent amid rising global tensions. Another key development is the AIM-260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missile, or JATM, currently in production for both the U.S. Air Force and the Navy. Designed as a beyond visual range air-to-air missile, the AIM-260 JATM is intended to counter advanced threats, and it'll be integrated into aircraft such as the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning II. Lockheed Martin has also unveiled the Mako, a multi-mission hypersonic missile designed to be compatible with fifth-generation fighters like the F-35 and F-22. Unlike traditional large hypersonic weapons, the Mako is engineered for internal carriage, allowing stealthy high-speed strikes. Additionally, in January 2025, the U.S. administration signed an executive order to develop an Iron Dome-style missile defense system for the U.S., inspired by Israel's highly successful Iron Dome.
We're gonna call it the Golden Dome. Other countries are gonna want it, but it's America's. It's gonna be America's Golden Dome. It's gonna be beautiful. The biggest dome. Israel thought their Iron Dome was good. It's not as good as the Golden Dome. Trust me, and I should know. I know more about Golden Domes than anybody.
This initiative seeks to enhance domestic missile defense, providing a comprehensive shield against potential threats. Now, what about the land forces? We've already covered the relative sizes of the militaries in terms of manpower, but armored vehicles are yet another important aspect of their respective armies. The U.S. Army's primary main battle tank is the M1 Abrams, with over 4,600 units in service. Notable for its excellent combat performance, the M1 Abrams features advanced composite armor, a 120mm smoothbore cannon, and a gas turbine engine that provides exceptional mobility. Continuous upgrades have enhanced its electronics, armor, and weaponry to address evolving battlefield threats. This means that despite being developed in the 1980s, the design of the M1 Abrams, or more specifically the M1A2 Abrams, contains contemporary technology and armaments.
I mean, if it ain't broken, right?
In addition to main battle tanks, the U.S. fields a significant number of armored fighting vehicles, or AFVs, totaling around 38,600 units.
They're not all gas-powered, by the way. We do have some electric vehicles out there.
Fleet includes the M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, designed to transport infantry while offering substantial firepower and protection, of which the U.S. military uses around 800 ready and 1,400 stowed. The Stryker series, an 8-wheeled armored vehicle, provides versatility across various combat scenarios, with over 4,700 vehicles delivered, most of which are still in use. The U.S. also operates self-propelled artillery units such as the M109 Paladin, and multiple rocket launch systems like the M270 MLRS, enhancing its indirect fire capabilities. On the other hand, the People's Liberation Army operates 4,900 main battle tanks, with the Type 99 and its variants being the most advanced. The Type 99 incorporates composite and explosive reactive armor, a 125mm smoothbore gun equipped with an autoloader, and modern fire control systems. Its design emphasizes a balance between firepower, protection, and mobility. The PLA's armored fighting vehicle fleet is about 45,000 units strong, including the Type 4 infantry fighting vehicle, which offers amphibious capabilities and is armed with a 100mm rifled gun alongside a 30mm coaxial cannon. China has also invested in self-propelled artillery, fielding systems like the PLZ-05, a 155mm self-propelled.
Yeah, I mean, they got to be super prepared for, like, land-based combat, right? Because of, like, Russia and India and Turkey, and, like, they're completely surrounded by foreign nations. So they have to be. America needs to project its power across the world, so it needs to have a large navy and a large air force. But a lot of other countries have large standing armies with, like, a whole lot more artillery, let's say, than America does, because America doesn't necessarily need all that artillery when it has 1 million planes, right?
Howitzer, and maintains a substantial number of multiple rocket launch systems, such as the PHL-03, to provide robust fire support. While both nations possess formidable armored forces, their strategic focuses differ. The U.S. emphasizes power projection and expeditionary capabilities.
What did I just say, man? Oh my god. Ah, I'm so awesome. I'm so right all the time. Definitely subscribe for the right opinion all the time.
Maintaining a technologically advanced and highly mobile armored force designed for rapid deployment across diverse theaters. China's armored strategy is primarily oriented toward regional dominance. As we've mentioned, most of China's claims revolve around gaining control of the South China and East China Seas, Taiwan, and reinforcing its borders with other nations. This means that China is more accustomed to using defensive armored vehicles. In terms of sheer numbers, China holds a numerical advantage in main battle tanks and self-propelled artillery. However, the U.S. compensates with a larger fleet of armored fighting vehicles and a notable edge in technology, logistics, and combat experience. This would give it a significant advantage in a theoretical conflict. Then there's the unit that has long been the backbone of the ground forces, the revamped Marine Corps. The U.S.
Hoorah, Marine Corps!
Marine Corps is in the middle of a major transformation called Force Design 2030, a plan that's reshaping.
They take lives and eat crayons. That's it. That's all they do.
How Marines fight, especially in a potential conflict with China. Launched in 2020, the redesign shifts the focus from traditional ground combat to a faster, more agile force that's built for maritime operations. The idea is to make the Marines more effective in the Pacific, where China's growing military presence is a major concern. A big part of this change is the creation of Marine Littoral Regiments, or MLRs. These units are designed for quick, small unit operations on islands and coastal areas instead of massive land battles. They'll focus on controlling key maritime zones, launching missile strikes, and helping the Navy dominate the seas. Each MLR includes an anti-air battalion, a combat logistics battalion, and a littoral combat team, all working together to create superior pressure and area denial. To make room for this new approach, the Marine Corps has cut out a lot of its old-school heavy gear. The first phase is removing all the tanks and traditional artillery. Instead, the new focus is on long-range precision missiles, drone warfare, and better air defense systems. By shedding outdated equipment, the Marines are freeing up resources for...
Exactly how many theaters do you think China can fight this war on? Because America's gonna fucking test it.
...for weapons and tactics that fit modern combat needs. This shift is all about countering China in the Indo-Pacific. If a conflict ever breaks out, the U.S. doesn't want to be bogged down in massive land wars. Instead, the Marines will use small mobile forces to control key islands, disrupt enemy movements, and support naval operations. The strategy plays to the strengths of the U.S. military while making life difficult for Chinese forces trying to expand their reach. Not everyone is on board with these changes. Some critics argue that getting rid of tanks and heavy artillery could leave the Marines unprepared for certain types of battles. Others worry that smaller units could be too vulnerable if they get caught in a fight without enough support. But supporters of the plan believe this is exactly what is needed to stay ahead.
Well, when your job is a hit and run on logistical chains, then and not necessarily like long drawn out land-based battles, they're right, you don't need the tanks. You're going to be guerrilla warfare where you're going to jump in, you're going to do a whole lot of damage, and you're going to jump right the fuck out. Okay, you're not staying there for long, but you are going to blow up, let's say, a key bridge. You are going to take over, let's say, a key ship. You are going to close a key passageway for logistical trade routes and things to make it difficult for China to be able to continue their operations. That's what your new goal is now. That's why you don't have a tank.
Ahead of modern threats.
Don't worry, Marine. I'll explain it. It's fine.
Especially against a high-tech adversary like China.
God, I love the Marines. Nothing but respect for all of the American service members, dude.
2025, one of the unexpected challenges facing Force Design 2030 could be funding. With the project now halfway complete, the Marines must carefully evaluate which capabilities are worth keeping and where to reinvest resources. Despite these concerns, Marine Corps Commandant General Eric Smith has confirmed that the program remains on track. If fully realized, it'll give the U.S. a stronger foothold in the Indo-Pacific, limiting China's ability to project power, especially through its Navy. When combined with submarine warfare, this strategy could create a true zone of denial, making it significantly harder for Chinese vessels to operate freely in contested waters. Of course, China also has submarines of its own, so let's see how they stack up. The U.S. Navy exclusively operates nuclear-powered submarines, emphasizing global reach and sustained deployments. The fleet contains 14 Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines, or SSBNs, which serve as a critical component of the nation's nuclear deterrent. Additionally, there are 4 Ohio-class guided missile submarines, SSGNs, equipped with conventional weaponry for precision strikes. The attack submarine force includes 3 Seawolf-class SSN-21s, 23 Los Angeles-class SSN-688s, and 23 Virginia-class SSN-774 submarines, designed for a range of missions from anti-submarine warfare to intelligence gathering. The U.S. maintains a technological edge with advancements in stealth, sensor capabilities, and weapon systems, ensuring its submarines remain highly effective in diverse operational scenarios. The People's Liberation Army Navy boasts a mixed fleet of nuclear and diesel-electric subs. Again, this is due to a more narrow focus on regional rather than global power projection. As of 2024, the fleet includes 6 nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, 6 nuclear-powered attacks.
What that means is that if we're able to take away their access to, let's say, crude oil or diesel from Russia, it'll be significantly more difficult for 46 of their submarines to do anything. They have 6 nuclear-powered attack submarines and 46 diesel and /electric attack submarines, okay? So if we make it difficult for them to get diesel, it makes it more difficult for nearly all of their subs to do anything. And China doesn't have, like, vast oil reserves on their own land. They have to import that stuff from Russia. This is why I don't think China would have a hope in hell, especially in a prolonged warfare. Like, the longer it draws out, the more China's success decreases.
Attack submarines, or SSNs, and approximately 46 diesel-electric attack submarines, or SSKs. Notably, China's diesel-electric submarines, such as the Yuan class, are equipped with air-independent propulsion systems, enhancing their stealth and endurance. While China has made significant strides in modernizing its submarine force, they're still woefully behind the U.S. counterparts, especially in terms of quieting capabilities and sheer operational range.
Yeah.
In terms of quantity, both nations maintain substantial submarine fleets. China's projected to have around 76 submarines by 2030, slightly surpassing the U.S. fleet, which could give it a bit of an edge. However, the U.S. has the advantage due to its all-nuclear-powered fleet, offering greater endurance and operational flexibility. Technologically, the U.S. submarines benefit from decades of innovation in stealth and combat systems. China is still working on reducing the acoustic signatures of its newer models, which arguably is something that is practically necessary for the submarines to be effective at all. The recent sinking of China's advanced Zhao-class nuclear submarine during initial sea trials in 2024 highlighted the ongoing challenges China faces in its rapid naval expansion. It showcases just how much the U.S. has progressed due to having decades to perfect the technology.
Yeah, the U.S. taking a stronger stance toward China the way that we have recently brings China's progress to a screeching halt in all areas, as far as I can tell.
That China is just now trying to reverse engineer for itself. Then, there is an ever-important aspect that likely won't show up when you run the numbers for each country's army: alliances and global reach. The U.S. undeniably takes the win here, as it's part of the largest military alliance in the world, NATO. This gives it unparalleled defenses against...
Like, you can tell the infographics guy wants China to be able to win this, but there's just there's nothing that would suggest that it even could, hope.
Against foreign attacks. With NATO containing most of Europe and Canada, the U.S. military is supported by other alliance members to create a more comprehensive defense throughout Europe, something that has become even more important after the war in Ukraine started in 2022. Perhaps more important are the defensive pacts that the U.S. has signed with South Korea, Japan, and Australia. All of these nations are significant military powers of their own and have large claims in the Indo-Pacific. In a hypothetical scenario where the U.S. enters a direct conflict with China, these three nations might be the first ones to join the U.S. due to shared interests and mutual defense agreements. With alliances spanning the globe, it's no surprise that the U.S. maintains over 750 military bases across 80-plus countries. Some of these bases house tens of thousands of troops and support staff, serving as critical hubs for power projection and rapid response operations. Key installations include Ramstein Air Base in Germany.
Yeah, and America's, we're great at proportional responses. Emphasis on proportional.
Humphreys in South Korea, Guam Naval Base and Andersen Air Force Base, and Kadena Air Base in Japan.
In World War II, Japan attacked one single naval port, destroyed a few boats, and we vaporized 2 cities. All right? We burned people's shadows into buildings, all right? Masters of proportional response.
All strategically positioned to counter potential threats. Beyond these, the U.S. also maintains bases in Qatar, across Asia and Europe, and in Diego Garcia, a highly strategic joint U.S.-UK naval and air base in the Indian Ocean, used for long-range bomber missions and intelligence operations. The presence of so many large military bases allows the U.S. Armed Forces to be practically anywhere on the planet in a matter of hours, should the circumstances demand it.
We also have the logistical chains to be able to do that. We could deploy a Burger King in 24 hours anywhere on the planet, all right?
Comparison, China is practically isolated. One of its most notable alliances is with Russia, and considering that Russia has been at war for the past 3 years, it's unlikely to be of much help in a conflict against the U.S. The war in Ukraine has degraded the perceived power of the Russian military, and considering that China has previously imported much of its weapons and military equipment from the Soviet Union, the same doubts could be cast on the PLA. However, the range of improvements that China's made over the past 2 decades puts it firmly as the world's second best military. As for the first...
Right, well, they've been getting subsidized by the U.S. taxpayer, so that's going to stop. And we'll see just how long they continue this rate of progress.
There's really no contest. With an overwhelming technological and logistical advantage, the U.S. military relies on its experience and quality to project power globally. China in its current state is an economic powerhouse, but its military-industrial complex is still lagging behind the U.S., at least for possibly the next decade. However, that gap might be narrowing. China could potentially use its industry to equip an army with weapons that are just good enough to sustain it. That could tilt the scales more to a possible draw. Who do you think has the edge in military power?
I think it's not even close. I think America by a fucking mile. All right, it's not even close. There is a storm brewing across the Pacific Ocean, and China's going to try and do something, and America cannot allow it to succeed. I already know that there's no way that China would be able to beat America in a kinetic conflict, but maybe in a trade war, maybe in an economic war, and only if the BRICS nations are able to actually maintain a cohesive group, which there's not really all that much evidence to suggest that they would. I mean, they're already breaking apart. Russia and China, it didn't look like, attended the summit in Brazil this year. And now that China's military isn't going to be subsidized by the American taxpayers, they're not going to be able to innovate the way that they have been. And now that China's economy is going to take a hit due to the American tariffs. They're not going to be able to progress the way that they have been. And in addition to that, their manufacturing is going to end up dropping. I don't know how much, but they're not going to be as much of a manufacturing powerhouse as they have been, because the tariffs, in addition to making America a lot of money and costing foreign nations a lot of money, also incentivize bringing the manufacturing back to the United States domestically so that they can avoid paying the tariffs. But that would also make American citizens more money, but also take thousands of jobs, potentially even like tens of thousands of jobs, away from foreign nations, right? So all of the money that was going to China will now be going directly to America. So China's economy is going to take a hit. China's military is going to stagnate, and they're not going to be able to do what they want to do. And I think that will ultimately stop them from being able to take Taiwan in 2027. Not that I think they won't actually try. All right. Anyway, definitely subscribe on Rumble, subscribe on YouTube. I'm everywhere that videos are posted. You can follow me on X, and I stream once a week on Kick. So I look forward to seeing you guys. Bye.